It's tournament season at First, and the next big one at Gulfstream and ExpressBet is the Ultimate Betting Challenge this Saturday, March the 2nd. The Ultimate Betting Challenge features every race at Gulfstream Park on Fountain of Youth Day. Buy in for $6,000, $5,000 live bankroll, and compete against players from around the country for massive cash prizes and NHC seats. First will seed 4 NHC seats to the prize pool, and all cash entry fees will be distributed back as prizes. At 150 players, that's $150,000 in cash prizes, plus those 4 NHC seats. Play in the UBC on site at Gulfstream or jump in online with ExpressBet. Head on over to expressbet.com/tournaments for more information and to register to play. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux taking a look at the first leg of the late pick 4 at Santa Anita on Sunday. Race number 7 is the Grade 1 Frankie Kilroe Mile. There's some very nice turf horses based out in Southern California, and they're going to compete in this Grade 1 for $300,000. Easter has just been on a roll for trainer Phil D'Amato. Ashley, he's won 3 in a row. He loves life in Southern California.
Yeah, and Phil D'Amato, I mean, look at him in this race. He only has 2. I say only has 2 runners. I just feel like he's been, on the top of things, especially on the turf course there. And we've talked a lot about Easter when we've covered other races on the turf, specifically at Santa Anita, just horses not being as good as him. And that win streak's been pretty impressive. Now going to make that first start of 2024. But there's some other names in here. Goliad's been really impressive, especially with that front and speed, just a really speedy horse, and Kazushi's ridden this one really well for Mandela. And there's DeJour. DeJour obviously didn't perform, too well last time out, but at the same time, look at the waters that he was in. So we'll see if he can regroup in 2024.
Easter kicks hard from the back of the pack. Goliad, who you mentioned, is pure speed, and he displayed that last time out with such an impressive performance in the Thunder Road. It looks like he has found his game as a speedball going middle distances on the turf. This is the class quiz for him, but I think he's faster than First Piece.
I think he is. I think if he wants the lead, he could have it, and he could have it really easily. Look what he did last time out, and even in the starts prior to that. He loves to get a runaway lead and just see how far he can go. So we'll see. Luckily for him, in terms of the race that he's staying at a mile, and I think that's key.
Prince Obama's the number 1, and he's a very talented horse, but he's got some things working against him. Here's his most recent race, a graded stakes victory in the San Marcos. That all sounds very well. The problem is this race was over a year ago, going 1.25 miles, so he's really going to have to be sharp and on his best to score going a mile off such an extended break.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the big question here. Can he perform off the long layoff? But you start to think about horses off long layoffs. In another race that we'll cover at Santa Anita, Phil D'Amato can get these horses to roll, and that's even a lengthier layoff for that mare. So it's a concern. I don't know how huge of a concern it is. I think the bigger concern I have in here is just who he's facing. If it was a little lesser of a competition, I would think this horse could have a big say in the outcome of the race. But this is a deep water for the return.
Easter, the number 2, is always a solid allowance source on the East Coast for trainer Graham Motion. I think these hard and firm turf courses in Southern California really benefit him. He is now 3 for 3 in Southern California, and there's his most recent start, the San Gabriel, his final race of 2023, and as always, Easter kicks in the stretch.
Yeah, and this is a nice performance. He closes from off of it. It's very similar to what we saw in the Seabiscuit out at Del Mar. And he's just going to get up in time, but you can see him. It almost takes him a little bit, Dan, to get going and to find his best stride. Just kind of like an honest horse that grinds it out and kind of gets the job done. And to me, he's really hard to knock off his last 3.
The 3 Dandy Man Shine seems like he's a little bit underrated. He's a fair price at 8-1 on the morning line. He chased Goliad last time out in vain, but I thought he was very, very game because that was a hard chase, and he just kept on grinding and finished second. I think he might let the 9 do the dirty work this time around, and maybe he'll sit the catbird seat.
Yeah, I think last time out he was a little closer in terms of position post, where he was early in terms of that, and maybe not in how many lengths he was off the pace. But I think he's going to be a little bit further back. And to me, when I looked at this field, I mean, he's 8-1 on the morning line. I think Dandy Man Shines is a major sleeper in this race just because he's going to get some pace to run at. Goliad's going to go. If anyone else goes as well, he can sit that kind of spot and make a late run. And can't forget, people are going to sleep on him just because he broke his maiden 4 starts ago, but he has yet to miss the money since then. And that includes a 3rd place finish in a Grade 2.
The number 4, Irideo, is a graded stakes winner going a mile, and he's coming into this race in fine form off a win in the restricted Clockers Corner Stakes going down the hill. And turning into the stretch, Irideo has a lot of work to do. In behind horses, some quality foes getting the jump on him, and he's going to weave his way through traffic and get up at the end. So this was a nice performance for Irideo, a horse who occasionally runs big at big prices. Also a great ride from Jeremy Laprida.
Yeah, if you can catch him when he wins, you're certainly going to the window and getting fistfuls of money when you leave the window. I guess the concern is you look at this race, it was going 6.5. It was on the downhill. Now he's going back to a mile. And I feel like, at least in recent times, he's 8 years old, as a 7 and 6-year-old. When he was picking up checks at the mile, it's just picking up minor checks. He isn't winning a lot of his races. So if you're looking at him, he's another one that you're going to hope that there's a pace meltdown because he's going to close from off of it.
It's been a long time between drinks for the number 5, G's, who ran third in the Delmar and the Thunder Road last time out behind Goliad. All in all, I have no complaints about the trip. The pace was fast. Goliad just wasn't coming back to anybody. Maybe he didn't care for a little bit of give on the ground, but I won't be surprised if the turf course is good again on Sunday.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. They're expecting rain, right? That is why Saturday was canceled and races were moved to Sunday, and Sunday went to Monday. Concern with him is Danny Manshines has beaten him in his last 2. We already know that I've alluded to. He's my sleeper in this spot, and he just would need to improve from a figure standpoint. Hector Barrios, though, very, very good rider who's really riding the turf course well and made the right move going out to Southern California. And Doug, I mean, he has confidence in his horses when he puts them in spots like this. We've seen that with several runners. I think of Mixto and these other horses that you look at them, you go, they don't belong here. But Doug sees something in them, and typically they can get a piece. But for me, I couldn't endorse him in this spot.
The number 6 is Du Jour. He was a graded stakes winner at 3, and after missing a full year of racing, he sort of enjoyed a career renaissance last year after returning as a gelding. He was second in this race at a big price last year, but he did have the benefit of a prep, Ashley, and this time around, he's coming in fresh off of a non-threatening effort in the Breeders' Cup.
Stole my thunder there. I think Du Jour could be extremely tough. We know they took a shot in the Breeders' Cup Mile, finished 10th, but he only missed by 3.5. He was on a really nice roll before that. He did have a little bit of a freshening in between those races. This freshening, though, is a little bit longer. And I think when you look at his campaign last year as a 5-year-old, it took him a while to really hit his best. And that would be my concern. Can he fire his best to beat this group off the layoff? I'm not sure. He could be a very short price in here as well from a betting perspective. But late last season, he was certainly one to watch.
A horse that will certainly offer juicier odds is the number 7, McKinnon. This horse is returning off of a lengthy layoff for Doug O'Neill. He is listed as a first-time gelding. He's shown flashes of ability in the past, but he's really going to have to put it all together, considering he's facing a really good field off a really long layoff.
Very long layoff, and last time out, he really never got going. And his last couple, he just hasn't offered enough. But you said it best. I mean, can't forget he did win the Zuma Beach. He was very impressive back then, but that's several years ago. You're going now to a 5-year-old. What does he bring to the table? And, he's training well. I'll give him that. But this is a tough task for him.
It appears that Richard Mandela just has Goliad feeling good. This is a lightly raced 7-year-old. It would seem he'd run once or twice, and then there'd be a long layoff. This is going to be his 4th consecutive race without a layoff. He's feeling good, as you can see in this race. He just showed this crew his heels in the Thunder Road. He opened up a dozen lengths on the turn. He has plenty left under the wire, and his speed is very dangerous.
It's very dangerous. And Dan, I don't know, at this level in turf racing, there's not many horses that race like Goliad. There's not too many horses that open a 10, 12 length lead and just say, catch me if you can. And the other horses are trying to do so and unable to do so, at least in those last 2. He got a little tired back in December off that first race off the layoff. I think that was to be expected. But since then, he's been pretty impressive in those starts. I just wonder if anyone tries to pressure him at all. A, that's a big question. Are they able to do so? And B, if they can, what's that going to mean for him? We really haven't seen him get that sort of pressure early on where he's put to the challenge. He's just kind of gotten to the front. He's gone as fast as he can for as long as he can. And in the last 2, he's been able to find the trip to the winner's circle.
Perhaps the horse that'll go after Goliad early is the number 9, First Piece, a very likable, lightly raced 4-year-old. Lots of upside potential here. Here's his most recent start. This horse hasn't been off the board in any of his 7 prior turf races. This is his first start off of a lengthy layoff, a second-level allowance win. He's very game to win, and I think Mark Latin used this race as a prep, and he likely gained a lot of foundation from it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're kind of pointing for bigger things. And the way that he wins this, first off, he gets a career best number of a 95, but he's got to be game to the wire to get this win. And I'm very curious. We talk about him in the situation of can he press Goliad? When we look at his turf sprint, his first time sprinting on the turf at Santa Anita, and then he went to a mile, he did go pretty quick in that event. And I just always am curious about horses when they go from 6.5 and they stretch out to a mile, especially 6.5 on the downhill. I think he's still going to be keyed up early. He's been that way every single time. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does try to take a crack at Goliad. It just might fall out that way as well because first pace is quite fast.
He is fast. The question is, if he does go after Goliad, does it crack both of them and set things up for somebody else? Easter might be the best closer. Timeform US thinks so. We take a look at our top picks. That's where you're going. He's just been on a roll.
Yeah, I found it really hard to bet against him in the spot. It is a short price, though, at 9 to 5 on the morning line. I mentioned it, though. My sleeper is the 3, Danny Man Shines. I feel like this horse, he's a 4-year-old. He's been really good in his last 4, and maybe he's just developing. I think the price will be right. 8 to 1. I'd love to see him a little bit higher than that. I think he's the sort of horse against these more seasoned bets. You might be able to get value on him.
I'm looking for a quick pace and maybe a couple of horses to come up and pick up the pieces. Du Jour is going to have to deal with a laugh. He had no chance in the Breeders' Cup, so I'm not really interested in that race. But his prior form was good at a mile. Irideo is somewhat interesting. You know he's going to be a good price, and if there is pace, he'll kick on in the stretch. 2-3-6-8 for Ashley, 6-4-8-2 for me. This is a fantastic edition of the Grade 1 Kilroe Mile on a nice day of racing at Santa Anita on Sunday. Good luck.